My brother never had to ask twice for anything. I noticed it when I was about 9 years old. We were at the dinner table and Marcus wanted the last piece of chicken. He just looked at it. He didn't even say anything. My mother picked it up and put it on his plate. I had been staring at that piece of chicken for 10 minutes, doing the math in my head, calculating whether I had eaten enough to justify asking for it. I never got to find out. That was the first time I named it, even if I didn't have the word for it yet. My father coached Little League. Marcus played shortstop. I played too, right field, which is where they put the kids they're not worried about. My father would spend 45 minutes after every practice throwing grounders to Marcus, working on his footwork, talking to him the way men talk to each other when they believe in what they're building. I would sit on the bench and unlace my cleats and wait. Sometimes my father would look over and say, "Good game today," and I would nod because it was easier than explaining that I had been standing in right field for 6 innings and nothing had come my way except one foul ball I dropped. He wasn't a cruel man, my father. That's the part that's hardest to explain to people. He didn't sit in a chair and decide to love Marcus more. It wasn't a decision. Marcus was just the frequency my father was already tuned to, and I was something slightly off, a signal he could never quite lock onto. He tried sometimes. We went fishing once, just the two of us, and he talked to me about his own father and about hard work and I listened and felt close to him for about an hour. Then Marcus called from home because he couldn't find his baseball glove and my father spent the rest of the trip on the phone walking him through where to look, room by room, patient and warm and completely present in a way he had not been with me all afternoon. I don't think Marcus ever knew. That's the thing that gets me still. Marcus would have been horrified if you told him. He's a good person. He was a good brother. He shared his Halloween candy. He defended me when kids at school said things. He had no idea he was standing in a beam of light that I could never quite reach, no idea that every easy yes he got was a no someone had already decided wasn't worth giving me. He lived in a world where parents were warm and homes were safe and love was a thing that arrived without conditions. I don't resent him for that. But I spent 20 years resenting something, and it had to go somewhere. When I was 17 I got into a summer writing program at a university 2 states away. Full scholarship. I brought the letter to the kitchen table and my mother looked at it and said it sounded far. My father said I should think about whether I really wanted to spend a summer away from my friends. Marcus looked up from his cereal and said that was awesome. He meant it. My parents talked me out of it over the following week, gently, with no malice, just a steady application of doubt until I didn't go. The next summer Marcus went to a baseball camp in Florida for 3 weeks and they drove him to the airport like they were launching a rocket. I stopped expecting things after that. Not dramatically, not in a way anyone would have noticed. I just quietly recalibrated. I stopped bringing things to the table. I got good at not wanting things out loud. I moved out at 19, earlier than anyone expected. I told them I wanted independence and they said that was mature and threw me a small goodbye dinner. Marcus cried. My parents smiled and said they were proud. I drove away with everything I owned in a used hatchback and I remember the feeling was not sadness. It was something closer to relief, which itself felt like a kind of grief. I spent my 20s building a life that didn't require anyone's approval because I had trained myself out of needing it. I was good at my work. I had friends who chose me specifically, without the complicated arithmetic of family. I met a woman who loved me in a way that was direct and simple and I didn't know what to do with it for the first 2 years because I kept waiting for the terms to reveal themselves. There were no terms. That took a long time to trust. Marcus and I stayed close, actually. We talked on the phone most weeks. He never understood why I had moved so far away and I never explained it, not fully. He talked about our parents the way you talk about people who have only ever been good to you, with easy fondness, and I would listen and say yes and mean it, because they had been good to him. That was true. It was just also true that it wasn't the whole story. My father got sick when I was 34. I flew home and sat in the hospital and watched my mother hold his hand and Marcus pace the hallway making calls to relatives. I sat with my father alone one afternoon and he looked at me and said I had always been independent, said it like it was a compliment, like it was a quality I had been born with rather than something I had built out of necessity in his house. I said thank you. I held his hand. I meant it. He died on a Tuesday. I stayed for the week and helped with arrangements, and then I drove my rental car to the airport and I cried for the first time, not for the version of him I had lost but for the version I never had, the father who might have looked up from the phone, who might have driven me to the airport, who might have put the chicken on my plate. I cried for that man because he had never existed and now he never would. Marcus called me that night and said he didn't know how he was going to do this without Dad. I told him I would help him figure it out. I meant that too. Some things are just true at the same time. He was a good man. He loved his sons. He loved one of us in a way the other could feel, and the other in a way only one of us ever noticed. I noticed. I'm fine now. I just noticed.